Information shared on the following program is for general information purposes only. It does not constitute legal, tax, investment, or other advice, nor is it intended to recommend any particular investments, products, or financial instruments. Always seek advice from your financial advisor, attorney, or accountant with regard to investment, legal, or tax questions.
Do you know what the secret of life is?
No, what?
This.
Your finger?
One thing. Just one thing.
That's great, but what's the one thing?
That's what you gotta figure out.
What if I told you that one thing is not about the money? Stay tuned.
Welcome to the only show in the country dedicated to helping savers worry less about money, the WorryFree Retirement, with offices in Louisville and Bowling Green. Your host, five-time author and fiduciary, Tony Walker.
The movie City Slickers. The scene, one of my favorite of all time, featuring a 40-year-old city slicker played by Billy Crystal, who takes off to a dude ranch trying to discover the meaning of life, only to encounter a crusty old cowboy played by Jack Palance, who shares his simple yet prophetic advice to figuring out life. He says, that's for you to figure out. Well, welcome to the Worry-Free Retirement, folks. I am that little man in the sweater vest, the author and creator of the Worry-Free Retirement, Tony Walker. And today, and for the next 4 weeks, we're going to do something on this show that I've never done, and that's perform a deep dive into our unique 5-step process, a trademark process called the Worry-Free Retirement Process. And why it is so well suited, of course, this process for what we call savers. Remember, this show is dedicated to savers, those individuals out there watching who are more concerned with the return of their money as opposed to the return on it. You know, if we think of inventions that have thoroughly transformed society, I mean truly changed the way people interact with the world, what would be the first thing that comes to your mind? Well, my first thought is the wheel. I mean, think of these poor old cavemen back in the dark ages hauling around firewood, carrying around as much as they could handle, and then some guy comes up with the idea of taking a round wheel, attaching it to a wagon of sorts, and able to haul all kinds of firewood back to their dude ranch, saving a lot of time and effort. Of course, then you think and kind of move forward, what would be the next invention you would think of? We're going to talk about my book, The Worry-Free Retirement. I would say the printing press. You know, before the printing press, to print all these multiple books, poor old guys were handwriting stuff, these manuscripts, and that's all they had. So there was not a lot of books before the printing press because nobody had the time to write them. Fast forward to the car. It's really a wagon on wheels of sorts. Instead of a horse, you got these engines. What about the radio? Boy, this is a cool shot. Let's show a full screen here, Aaron. This is my granddad. I talk about him a lot. My granddad's 1943 Philco radio. The ability for radio to transmit sound over the airwaves, hundreds of thousands of miles even, depending on the type of station and the airwaves, but at least something that could transmit hundreds of miles was never heard of before. It's funny. People say, and I know Aaron, America's favored financial sidekick who's producing the show, he's been to my house and he's seen this radio and he kind of looked at me and said, well, how come you've got the radio, Tony? And I said, well, because Aaron, it wouldn't fit in my granddad's casket. It's a pretty big radio. But anyway, let's keep moving forward to the TV. Look at what the TV's done to revolutionize society. And then finally, you guessed it, today's cell phone. Now you might say, Tony, what do you think about the cell phone? Hadn't that been a great invention? And I would say on the surface, yes, but in light of today's show that is trying to help us figure out what we want in life, not what everybody else tells us we should want, in some ways the cell phone, I think, has hindered us. Why? Because right at our tip of our fingers is this ability to reach hundreds of thousands of different opinions about anything you want, including money. In fact, this technology is so advanced, you could be sitting there right now and Google City Slickers and watch this same clip that we just pulled up earlier. It's right in the palm of your hand, and that means all of the world's opinions, whether good or bad, is in the palm of your hand as well. Now, believe it or not, folks, speaking for nearly 35 years to literally thousands of people, no matter what kind of money you have, what I found is, whether you got a little or a lot, people still worry about money. And the reason I think this is because even though you might have plenty of money, most people don't have a clear vision, number one, of what the money's really for, and how they're going to use and enjoy it. What I've determined in my own personal walk is that money is part of the journey, but it is not the destination. Anything you have, eventually when you die, you can't take it with you, so why not use and enjoy it while you can? We at the WorryFree Retirement in our process at Tony Walker Financial feel that the best thing for savers to do is first establish a clear vision, but that vision must mean we've got to make sure the money is, or at least most of it, is guaranteed, and secondly, we got to make sure, like my granddad, we don't run out of it. You know, there's an old story I've heard of a man that was up in the state of Vermont, and he was lost, and he was trying to get to a meeting, and he could tell that he was heading in the wrong direction. And in desperation, he sees to his right a small, rutted, rural road. And he thinks about it. He goes, wait a minute, that road's heading in the right direction. So I think I'm going to get off this main road and get on this old road, and hopefully I can get there sooner. Well, unbeknownst to him, as soon as he gets on the road after about a couple of 100 miles, there's a sign there on the road, and it says, choose your ruts carefully. You'll be in them for the next 20 miles. You see, folks, what you decide today will have a huge impact on these choices you make today for tomorrow. So when we come back, I'm going to talk about the WorryFree Retirement, the 5 steps that we go through, but more importantly, this first step, why it is so crucial and why my training of helping savers clarify their vision is the key to a worry-free retirement. I'll be right back. You stay tuned. What if there was a financial product that could guarantee an income you could never outlive? A product that is not at risk in the stock market? Well, there is, and it's called an annuity. And for the past 34 years, I've personally helped thousands of savers secure over $300 million of annuities. So why risk your hard-earned money when you don't have to? Let's meet in person to see if an annuity is right for you. Log on today to TonyWalkerFinancial.com. Some 15 years ago, I authored a book called The WorryFree Retirement. In fact, I was looking at the back of this book. Ed Slott, who's a well-known CPA, says, Tony Walker's book presents a simple but powerful step-by-step process that will not only bring you financial peace of mind, but also show you how to figure out what you really want in life, which is really the theme of today's show. What is it you want? What are you trying to accomplish? It's kind of a funny story about that book. Actually, it was originally called Perfecting Your Walk in Retirement. I was all excited about the title. I had a webinar, and we had people asking questions about what types of exercise to do in retirement. And I thought, man, I got to rebrand this thing. But the 5-step process was already created, and thus we put it in the book, The Worry-Free Retirement. So what we're going to do is show you these unique 5 steps. This is what I go through with everybody. So if you elect to meet with me and sit down in person, this is my training and background. I've been doing this for years. This is why we have upwards of 2,000 clients because of this process. So let's take a look at this. The first thing in anything we do in a process is clarify your vision. Now think about this. This doesn't matter what you're doing. This could be a decision-making process that you use maybe buying a car. You know, you go to a car, and before you go walking on a car lot and you don't know what you want, it'd be a good idea to have an idea, because then the salesman or whoever could help you. So in our process, we're trying to figure out, when do you want to retire, and what type of retirement do you want, and ultimately, when you're dead and gone, what do you want to leave behind? That's the clarify your vision. Now, the second step to our process is we assess your situation. Folks, this is really where the training comes in. Yesterday, I had nearly 20 appointments back to back to back. And now some people might say, well, how can you physically even do that, Tony? I was at a conference recently and was recognized for my efforts, and people said that. How do you see so many people? Well, number one, we have a process. We have people in our Bowling Green office that handle all the details, which allows me to see more people. I mean, I don't want to be shuffling paperwork around. I want people that are good at that. I don't want to be doing Social Security analysis. I've got an expert on that. I don't want to have to do a deep dive and figure out the tax analysis for each person. I have a person for that. What this allows me to do is see you in person so we can quickly assess what it is you've got. That is the key. Now, the third step of our process is really crucial, and that is called setting down to create, listen, a written game plan. Years ago, I was privileged to study under, I call him goal-setting guru, Brian Tracy. And what I would do is I would fly out to San Diego every quarter and attend a program then called Focal Point. Me and about 50 other people from across the country. And what I learned very quickly from Mr. Tracy is if you're serious about something, you've got to write it down. If you're setting up goals for the future, you've got to write it down. As Charles Stanley once said, a short pencil is better than a long memory any day. So many times you'll meet with advisors, they won't give you anything in writing. I hear this from people and I say, what do you mean they're not going to give you anything in writing? What is the game plan? What are you and your family going to do with this money, and how are you going to use and enjoy it? And ultimately, what are they going to do when you die? Folks, we give you a written game plan, and listen closely. There is absolutely no cost or obligation for the written game plan. So you might say, well, Tony, that's all well and good, but let's say I like the game plan. Is it up to me to implement the game plan? That's the best part. Because the fourth step of our worry-free retirement process is we actually implement the game plan for you. Folks, I've got some of the best staff money can buy. These are really good people, and they've literally, let's take Connie Fortney, for instance, been with me 15 years. You know how many 401ks and thrift savings accounts we've rolled over successfully into safer territory? Literally in the thousands, folks. So we have people who, once we start the implementation, we're going to handle everything for you. Kind of reminds me when I flew back from this trip, this conference I attended, you know, I didn't get up there and have to fly the plane and figure out how to operate all the instruments. I went down and sat at my seat. The pilots safely flew me home. I didn't worry about it. That's the same thing with a retirement game plan. You have to have somebody to implement it. Now here's where the rubber meets the road. Are the people working for you and handling your money, are they going to be there long term? You know what I've found over the years? A lot of advisors, and there's nothing wrong with this, it's perfectly legal and ethical, but what they're doing is they're building up a shop, a business, in order to sell that business and walk away one day. That is not my philosophy with the worry-free retirement. My goal, as long as God has gifted me with the ability to work hard and communicate with others, here's the biggie. We are going to be there for you, step 5, to monitor your progress. You know, my dad used to have an old saying. He used to say, nothing stays the same. Folks, all I can tell you is, one thing's for certain, things will eventually change. People die. People become sick. People have issues with their children. People want to move, downsize. People receive inheritances. People have to deal with taxes. This is why it's so important in your process to have a way to monitor that very efficiently, and we do. So if you're looking at that saying, Tony, gosh, I don't have anything like that. I don't have a process. I don't have a written game plan. All I've got is a bunch of statements and annuities somebody wrote. I don't know what to do with these things. We can help. The best thing you can do right now is take action. We've been talking about things you can do today. Contact us today. Just log on to TonyWalkerFinancial.com. Click on that Let's Get Started button or give us a call at 877-499-9255. Well, what about savers? What is their vision for a worry-free retirement? Let's put some legs on this. How can you as a saver enjoy your money, protect that money, and at the same time make sure you don't put all of your money at risk? Some good stuff coming up. You're watching the Worry-Free Retirement. I'll be right back.
Are you retired or retiring soon? Can you afford for your money to take a hit with the stock market being so volatile these days? Nobody can time the market, but having a retirement game plan with Tony Walker Financial gives you peace of mind and sleep insurance. Learn how to prevent losses in your retirement accounts and plan your retirement around an income you can never outlive. Log on to TonyWalkerFinancial.com today to schedule a personal meeting with Tony to secure your hard-earned money. That's TonyWalkerFinancial.com.
And now it's time for Tony in the Trenches.
Our Tony in the Trenches question comes from Virginia, who lives just outside Louisville, and she asks, Tony, I just turned 53 and am contemplating retiring from work now. I have a nice 401k and lump sum pension totaling around $1 million. I have no debt, very little expenses at home, but I recently talked to an advisor about retiring now and taking advantage of something called a 72T election to avoid some taxes, but the advisor said, don't do the 72T because it's much too complicated. He said I should just keep working. Please weigh in on this, Tony. And do you know anything about 72T elections? Well, good news, Virginia, we do. Again, a full-service retirement planning specialist should know this stuff. So basically what I thought I would do is just take a quick second to understand a 72T election. Now, in this example, Virginia, it's key to note that a 72T, this is to avoid what's called the excise tax. So essentially, if you try to take money out of an IRA prior to 59.5, not only is it going to be taxable, but the government takes an additional 10% tax on top of that. So it is a huge deal, but there's a way to legally avoid the 10% tax, and that's the 72T election. We've done quite a few of these. We understand these, and here's how it basically would work. So at 53, the government has tables. We're not going to get into those tables today, but basically we would set up 2 IRAs, in this case for Virginia. And basically the government says you have to take that money out until 59.5. Once we start this income based on the government tables, we can't stop it. So let's say the 72T election says that we have to take out $40,000 per year. We have to do it 5 years or 59.5, whichever is greater. So since she's 53, we have to take it out to 59.5. Now, what's the advantage of this? The advantage is, what was Virginia's original vision here? It was to retire now. So what happens is, unfortunately, she's talking to an advisor who knows nothing about 72T. Maybe rather than admitting to them that they ought to, Virginia ought to get a second opinion and just admitting, I don't know much about this, the advisor's only advice is get back to work. Well, that really doesn't help Virginia at all. So again, folks, we're talking about clarifying your vision. How do we do that? How do we set that up so it's personal for us and not at the whims of some advisor that may not understand retirement planning? Now, with that said, we're going to talk about this bucket a little bit, because this will fit in nicely to the slide presentation I'm going to do. What about this bucket? So you say, Tony, if I spend money out of this bucket, and let's just say literally that bucket is worth 0 at 59.5, but in the meantime, where could we maybe put this bucket over here that we're not using? So again, what I'm getting ready to show you, whether you've got a 401k, IRA, money languishing in the bank, what we want to do is set the stage for as you move towards retirement. Again, this show's about savers now. We're not wanting to take a lot of risk. How can we take one of these buckets, kind of put a wrapper around it that protects it, but also how it might gain additional types of money linked to the stock market? So basically, let's talk about something that I love called the fixed indexed annuity. Remember, our vision in this case for savers is we have to have some protection on some of our money. Again, we're not going to put all of the money into the fixed indexed annuity. We're trying to show you how this product would work, juxtaposed, as they like to say, with the stock market, which is very risky. So let's kind of take a look at 1998. We have to go back historically and try to find, quite frankly, some lousy years in the stock market, because if you're retired one day, folks, this could happen. So in 1998, we've got person A, person B. Person A is going to put $160,000 of their 401k in the market. Maybe it was Virginia. She's rolled some money over. Person B is going to put that money into a fixed indexed annuity. So they're both equal at the same time because they've made a choice. Person A here, person B here. Let's go to the next year. As we see in 1999, this was the actual return of the S&P. Did really well, almost 20%. So the stock market portfolio shoots up to 192. That's a lot of money. I mean, that is a really good return on the money. But a fixed indexed annuity is different than the stock market. Technically, it is not invested in the stock market, but it is participating in the stock market. So a fixed indexed annuity can pay a participation rate. I think we calculated this at 45. They vary, but basically we'll stay with a 45%. So in other words, the market goes up 19.53. The insurance company credits 45% of 19.53. So person B gets 8.79. Their account goes to 174. Now, if we just stop right there, anybody in the right mind would say, wait a minute, what's the deal here versus here? Why did the insurance companies even invent this product called a fixed indexed annuity? There's not much going on there, is there? Well, let's wait and see. All right, go to the year 2000. Whoops, red means bad, by the way, folks. Remember George Bush? It's bad. So that's bad. The S&P went down 10%, and so did the value. Look at that. It dropped to 172. But here's the beauty. This is why my wife loves these fixed indexed annuities. She said, Tony, we can't lose anything, and even if we made something the prior year. That's right, Susan. Look at that. While we don't make anything, the worst we can do is zero. So zero is our hero when it comes to bad stock markets. and you can see our floor remains at 174. Again, folks, what I'm getting ready to show you actually happened. This gets worse. Let's go to the year 2001. Yep, it dropped another 13%. And think about this, folks. We're just trying to visualize and clarify your vision. Can you imagine if you just retired 3 years ago and you've got all your money in the market and this is happening? Talking about worrying sick over your money. So that drops to 150. Zero is our hero again. We're still at 174. You say, Tony, I don't understand. How can they do this? This is just the way the contract works. 2002, when's it going to get better, Tony? Oh, it got even worse. The market dropped over 23%. You're down to 114. Now think about this, folks. What if you were taking money out of this account? This would be awful. I mean, it would be a disaster. You'd probably have to go back to work. In fact, during this period of time, I've met people that retired and they had to go back to work. Their accounts were obliterated. But look at this. Yeah, 3 zeros in a row. I know we're not batting great, zero batting average here, but we're not losing anything. We're still in the ball game. We've still got our 174. Now here's where it gets really cool. Let's go to 2003. Finally, the market goes up 26%. Surely that would get me back to break even if I was in the market, right? No, look at that. You put in 160, even after a 26% gain with all these losses, you're only at 145. See, folks, what people don't realize, when you've lost a lot of money, this happened last quarter of 2018, when you lose and then you make money on that loss, even if it's 26%, that's not a lot of money because the 26% was based on the 114. Right? You see what I'm saying? You lose 10 on 192, you lose 20, you make 26 on 114. It doesn't really help you that much because you've lost so much money. But look at this. We're back up to making money because the indexed annuity participates in the 26. So now we're up to 11.87, which is added to our original floor, which never went down, and it's at $195,000. Talking about clarifying your vision and having a worry-free attitude approaching retirement. My wife, who's a nurse, my wife really doesn't know much about money, could care less about money. When I put some of her money in one of these products and I showed her this, what her response was? She said, Tony, why in the world wouldn't anybody do this? It makes complete sense. And maybe that's you. You might be sitting there saying, Tony, I've never heard of a fixed indexed annuity. Or I've been Googling around on annuities and I can't find anything about them that helps me understand the truth about annuities. Well, guess what? I wrote a great little booklet called The Annuity Decision Guide for Savers. You can find it on our website at TonyWalkerFinancial.com. It's absolutely free. Here's what I'd recommend. If you're retired, nearing retirement, it doesn't matter your age. In fact, my oldest son, Philip, he's in his 30s. He recently rolled over his IRA into one of these. We want to make sure you understand the truth behind these products. And as a fiduciary, I'll make sure that this product is right for you before you do anything regarding annuities. So log on now to TonyWalkerFinancial.com. Well, does the Bible have anything to say about clarifying your vision and worrying about your tomorrows? It sure does. Jesus has some great words of encouragement and helps us to understand that while we must plan for tomorrow, we got to live for today. But first, I got to get me a cup of coffee. I'll be right back.
Win or lose, games are a blast, but playing around with your retirement is serious business. So don't leave your retirement to chance. Get a retirement game plan from well-known retirement specialist Tony Walker. Learn how to be worry-free in retirement with a safe and simple game plan that includes mailbox money for life. To meet in person with Tony, log on to TonyWalkerFinancial.com. That's TonyWalkerFinancial.com.
Welcome back to the Worry-Free Retirement with the money missionary himself, Tony Walker.
Well, what was once the cat's meow of radios, this 1943 Philco that my granddad had for years and I got to enjoy, is now a thing of the past. And so too will be the things that you and I preoccupy ourselves with today. Things really will one day become obsolete. You see, this life really is not about the money. So you ask then, Tony, what is it about? Well, instead of turning to Jack Palance for answers, let's turn to the Bible. And in only the way God can, He's going to remind us not to look at the things of the world and chase after those things for evidence of our contentment, but to look at the things He's already created. And we see this in Matthew 6:25, where Jesus reminds us not to be anxious, I would say worry, but not to be anxious about food and clothing, but instead, He says, look at the birds of the air. Neither do they sow, nor reap, nor gather into barns. Sounds like you and I working, doesn't it? In other words, He's saying they aren't worried about tomorrow because they know today is really all that matters. God is going to provide for those birds, but yes, they have to get out and work for their food. Jesus then says, look around, observe the lilies of the fields, and reminds them they neither toil nor spin, but look how beautiful God has made those. And then the greatest encouragement of all of this is, He says in verse 30, but if God so arrays the grass of the field, which is alive today and tomorrow thrown into the furnace, will He not much more do so for you, O men of little faith? In other words, folks, come on now, if God cares for birds and flowers, surely He'll take care of us. And thus, Jesus concludes this sermon with an interesting verse of Scripture that basically says, therefore, do not be anxious. In other words, quit worrying so much about tomorrow, for tomorrow will care for itself. You know, we highlighted the film City Slickers, and Billy Crystal is trying to get the meaning of life and trying to figure out things and trying to find out that one thing. Well, you know, in my life, what I've found in working with savers is there's one thing that will help them have more peace of mind when it comes to their finances, and that is taking action today. You know, you have an opportunity to meet with me in person or even just talk by phone. Many people take advantage of this opportunity. I've been doing this 35 years, folks. I'm a fiduciary. This is all we do is retirement planning, and I'm right in your own backyard. We have offices in Bowling Green and Louisville, Kentucky. Absolutely no cost or obligation to meet, so why don't you take advantage of talking to me in person to see how we might help you worry less about tomorrow. Log on to TonyWalkerFinancial.com and just click on that Let's Get Started button. Now what happens, that will go to our offices confidentially, and we will meet in person to discuss your personal situation. TonyWalkerFinancial.com. Well, we've just covered the first part of a 5-part series on the worry-free retirement process. Next week, this is going to be some interesting stuff. So no matter your age or stage in life, we're going to talk about the 3 halves of money and how do we assess where you are now, depending on your age and stage in life, and where you're going to be tomorrow and how best to prepare for it. You've been watching the Worry-Free Retirement. You remember, between now and next week, if all else fails, you be worry-free. Make it a good one.
Thank you for watching the Worry-Free Retirement with Tony Walker. If you need a safe and simple game plan for your retirement, log on to TonyWalkerFinancial.com and schedule a free, no-obligation meeting with Tony.